Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I remain your facilitator, Dr. Truth. And we are live again today in today's facilitation, and I believe that most of you must have prepared for today's session. So today we will be talking about financial planning, planning, implementation, appraisal, and financing of rural development projects. All right, so as a way of introduction, I like to state some of the obvious objectives of what we'll be going uh, through today. The expectation is that every student at the end of today's session will be able to at least discuss the concept of planning, the concept of plan, what is a plan, the concept of rural development planning, the elements of planning, what we mean by implementation and appraisal, what we really mean by finance and rural development financing, the objectives of promoting rural finance. And we expect that every student should be able to discuss the different indigenous self-help organizations that are involved in rural financing as well as rural savings and capital formation. Then we'll throw more light on the nature of the Nigerian rural financing system. So let's buckle up so we get through it quickly. Now, as usual, most of you are already used to this, but you know that after a couple of minutes of my talking about some of the concepts, I'm going to be instructing everyone to unmute themselves, and then I will ask questions, you will ask, and then I'll raise some pertinent issues concerning some of the concepts we're talking about today, so we can easily just talk about them together. One of the things you'll notice in talking about these concepts is that it tends to make you remember these things going forward, and then helps us to bring out practical things, practical events, practical elements, practical conceptualization or implementation of or relating or illustrating our concepts to real day, everyday activity. So anyone who does not plan, it's always said in the street fathers that anyone that doesn't plan is eventually planning to fail. So this is the plan for today's session and every other session as it were. So today we're talking about plan, and it's a unique concept. So what is a plan? Now, before we go into the real definition of a plan, remember, for rural development to really kick in and be very effective, there must be a plan. And like we said, anyone who doesn't plan is planning to fail. So effective implementation is the result of good plan. During and after the implementation phase of every rural development program, appraisal kicks in and is needed to determine whether the objectives have been achieved or not. All right. So implementation is carrying out the plan. Appraisal is like examining your steps along the way, checking and evaluating what you're doing, whether it is in line with the plan, the objective of the rural development from day one. So that you can adjust accordingly. All right. Now, what's the meaning of a plan? Plan. Some scholars have defined plan as a statement of how a thing is to be done. It is a process. It is a process of determining the course of action that is necessary to be taken in the pursuit of a particular goal or achievement of an objective. It is a written document setting out the activities, the times, the budgets that is required to meet a set of goals. Plans provide a rational approach to achieving pre-selected objectives. They direct the efforts of all concerned towards achieving that objective. For example, this facilitation session we're having, of course, all of us, we are part of it and we are involved in it. We know it will happen on Sundays by 5. Now, plan for it. Personally, I get my data recharged. I'm sure my system is working, properly charged. I'm sitting in my seat waiting for the time. And I'm one of the facilitators. For you, you get your system ready or your phone ready. Maybe you are in a public place, you're somewhere, you get an earpiece, put on your ear, get a pen and paper, and you keep writing things or plan to write things. And that is you planning to attend and be part of it. So if you do not know what to do per time, like we see here, the first is we know the activities. The second is that we know the time for this for these our studies, and then we budget for it by providing the things we need along the way. That is planning. That is planning for you. Now, what are the elements of planning? Planning of rural development is very significant. It could make or mar the success of the developer. Of course, I tell students, some of you are already getting ready. Maybe in a couple of years' time, you'll start doing your project, doing seminars and all that. Now, if you know you will do this, if you know the time for this is coming, why not start planning now? Just like rural development, it's a very important part of our existence as a people, so that people can develop the rural areas in order to decongest the urban area, in order to reduce rural urban migration. Like we talked about a lot of approaches last time and issues of rural areas. Now, if we are going to achieve all that, it is important that we understand what makes and what mars rural development or rural developers in the course of achieving their objective. So if we do not plan, I'm sure we are going to mar the success of rural development. So let's see some of the elements. A careful planned rural development action has the tendency of achieving the stated objective at the end. So the primary stage that needs expert ideas and extreme care is understanding the elements of planning as it concerns rural development. So this is the primary stage, and it could be a long-term plan or a short-term plan, depending on the nature of the program you want to implement at the rural development level, the target group you are going for at that level, and the set objectives you are going for at that level. So what are the elements? The following elements should help you achieve rural development programs and should not escape your mind as students. And some of you are rural development project managers, it shouldn't escape your mind as well. One of the elements, programs should be based on existing rural conditions of the target group. Most times I try to make it come alive for us. When we say rural development, people think that what we're talking about is a very far thing. No, let's say in the rural area, what we're talking about is bringing about adult literacy. We've noticed that in the rural areas, the people that are there are not educated, especially the adults. And of course, you know what adult education is. If you educate a mother, you've educated a nation. I knew this from my secondary school days. So if you educate the adults, especially the mothers, you've educated the people, because she will in turn educate her children. That's why they use that particular phrase. So the first element of planning is the program you are planning to execute should be based on the existing rural conditions of the target group. Let's say you want to educate the adults, evening school, adult education. What are you supposed to do? Plan that program based on the existing conditions that they have on ground. Do they have any school at all? Do they have a space that they can use for that education? Who will be the instructor? What time will it be done? You see what I'm talking about now. All these are supposed to be conditioned towards those adults that you are targeting to educate. Of course, if you get them educated, you are on the path of achieving your rural development objective. So the first element of planning for you in that particular project, educating the adult member of the rural area, is to arrange that your program so it to be based on the conditions around the targeted group for that particular program. Number two, programs should address the felt need of the people. If the people are basically educated or even have a kind of education, there's no need trying to educate them even further, because that may not be the core of their problem. And if that is not the core of their problem, as you push education towards them, they will repel it and tilt towards what is their felt need. So you understand what I mean, or what we mean here when we say programs should try to address the felt need of the people. Once the need of the people have been addressed by such program, they will embrace it, and that program will kick in really quick. Number three, existing cultural practices of the people should be considered. We talked about the cultural practices of the people before as sort of, in some cases, a hindrance. So if the cultural practices of the people is going to be a hindrance, consider it and find a workaround. That is one of the elements of planning. Number four, the experience of well-trained agents and professionals should be utilized. Of course, we can never downplay experience. Experience is just so wonderful. There was a story that we heard, or so was told some time ago. A big engine was bad, and they looked for people that could fix it. Nobody could fix it. So one day they called a man, and the man came there and just looked at the engine, walked around it, touched something here, touched something there. At the end of the day, he just took his hammer and he hit the engine like 3 times, bam, bam, bam here, bam, bam, bam there, and they started the engine and it worked. Wow, everybody were excited. And they said, the man now said, okay, how much is your bill? And the guy charged, I don't know exactly the amount, but let me just give an amount. The guy charged 100,000 naira, for example. All right, I'm not really very sure of the amount. So the owner of the engine said, wow, that's too expensive now just to fix this engine. And besides, what did you really do? You just tapped here, we just tapped there. The man laughed and said, okay, let me break down the cost for you. I tapped here, I tapped there. He wrote it down. Tapping here, just 2,000 naira. Tapping there, 2,000 naira. Tapping here, at the end of the day, all his effort was put together, 6,000 naira. And then the remaining 94,000 naira, he wrote experience for knowing where to tap, how to walk, how long to tap, what to tap. All those ones were now 94,000 naira. Of course, the man is just telling you that for me to be experienced enough to know where to solve your problem was basically what I'm charging you for. So you see, the fourth element of planning here is the experience of trained agents and professionals, and this should not be neglected. They must be utilized. And number five, local leaders in the area should be recognized and consulted. Of course, opinion leaders are people that their opinions, people believe it and key into it, so they should be consulted. And the sixth element of planning is that there should be collective efforts of all the relevant people in the area. And then the seventh, there should be a well-trained educational or sensitizational program for people as a necessity for collaboration. Sensitization is to bring people's mind, awaken their interest to what you're trying to do. And that is quite very important. And then number eight, basic need of the people should be carefully assessed. We said something similar to this, but this is a little different because if you do not assess, you can't implement correctly. Assessment is important because assessment will tell you what extent your implementation will go, where to start from, how to go about it. All right. Then number 9 there says the goals and objectives of the program should be carefully determined. And then lastly, we have the local resources of the people should be assessed and utilized as much as possible. Now, that is the element of planning for you. Very, very important for us. Now, let's talk about the rural development project plan, implementation, and appraisal. Let's go through the planning, implementation, and appraisal according to scholars. These are the stages of the planning. The first is the need assessment stage, the objective selection stage, prioritization of objective stage, determining resources to use, program design stage, program implementation stage, and then program evaluation or appraisal stage. Are you seeing that? So you see these stages, they go step by step. Now, let's explain them one by one so that you know what we are really doing in each of these steps. Can we take that example? I hope we are all here. I hope you can hear me. If you can't hear me, please type it there so that I'll be sure I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to myself. Someone just type that you can hear me so I can be sure I'm talking, that you can hear me. Now, at stage 1, which is the need assessment stage, what are you supposed to do? This is the first stage of the rural development plan. It involves identifying the Okay, I'm sure you can hear me now.
Okay. I be
Okay.
whiny you.
Sorry. Now I know you can hear me. All right. Thank you for helping me get. All right. We said, thank you. We said the first stage is the uh, need assessment stage. All right. Now, this here, can we mute ourselves, please?
Where your
If you
motor?
join me, you mute yourself or I'll kick you out. You can't be doing this. This is a class. Now, this first stage, the planner of the program tries to sort out who's doing.
Hello? Okay.
Hey, Joffo, why are you on mute? I will remove you from this class. So mute yourself when you join us and stop disrupting our class. Can someone call this person's attention and tell her to stop? If she interrupts my class again, a Joffo blessing, if you interrupt my class again, I'll remove you. Please behave yourself. So we're talking about the stages of rural development project plan. We said the first is the need assessment stage. At this stage, the planners try to sort out the real needs of the people, all right, the tangible problems that the program will be trying to solve, all right. I said, let us try to use a real need, education need, for example. Let's use something like that. Let's use adult education need as an example to illustrate most of the things we'll be talking about today. So in this stage of need assessment, to effectively identify and assess the need of the people, what do? You use instruments like questionnaires, interviews, you carry out what do you call it? Form a focal group, assessment group where you people come together and speak and tell us what their issue is. Then you, as the planner, you physically what they call it, observe what is happening around the place. And by using this instrument, you can extract what the real need of the people is. Let's say, for example, the class of CID 305 decides to go and need assess people in Ikorodu, the deep side of Ikorodu, what is really their problem. All right, we go in there. What do? We walk in there with maybe questionnaires, papers with questions, and we hand it over to a few people there, tell them to fill it, telling us what is really their problem, what they will need to be done in that environment. At the end of the day, we evaluate those questionnaires, we see the predominant need of the people, and that gives us an idea. Or we just interview people randomly. We interview the market woman, we interview the shop owner, we interview the organizer, we interview the school children, we interview the elders, and we extract the problems they think is there. So the first is the need assessment stage. Then the second is the objective selection stage. So once the needs of the people in that community has been identified, the planners carefully draw out the objective to be achieved based on the needs that they have extracted from the people. All right. So if it is an educational need, for instance, like we talked about the adult education stuff we talked earlier, given the fact that there is high illiteracy rate in the area, the objectives could be like this. One, basic education. Let us go and instill basic education for the people. Two, functional literacy. We try to carry out real functional skill acquisition literacy for the people. Then the third, secondary education. If objectives are not wisely set, the program may not be result oriented. So the third stage is called prioritizing the objectives. Prioritizing the objectives. Okay. Now, when you have set the objective, you now prioritize it. For example, for the education case, we say, okay, we set objectives to stage 2, which is education, like we said. All right. We say we want to provide education. So we have a carefully staged, arranged objective that will now say, with experts involved in that educational field, we come together and we now set up we try to arrange the objectives in a logical order. That is what we will do first, what we will do second, what we will do third, in order to achieve the ultimate education goal of adults in the environment. You see that? So we say which objective is to be achieved first, which is to be last. Should particular objective be achieved simultaneously, this one and this one, or we should be doing it at the same time? All this should be determined at this stage where we prioritize objective. Then we now determine which resources, that's at stage 4, determining resources, which resources will be needed to achieve this objective. We consider our consideration should be given to quality and quantity of that resources. Such resources should be like the human resources that will be needed, the material resources that will be needed. For example, the education, which board, blackboard or white marker board will they use? Which classroom will they use? Which curriculum will they use? Who will teach them? You see the human and the material resources. So this is what is considered at this level. Then we have stage 5, which is the program design. We'll now design programs. With the human and material resources we have at hand, the rural developer now sketches out the program of action. He designs how the resources will be put to use and when. The dates, particular activities we earmark probably for the education program we are talking about. Which day will we start our classes? Who will teach what course? What time will the course be? What timetable and schedules will the classes be having and taking? You see it. What is the duty of which person? What's the function of professionals at different levels? We spell it out in that particular plan of design or program design. So the expected date of completion of the entire program is also indicated. The design is determined by the previous 4 stages before this particular stage. All right. Now we go to stage 6, which is the program implementation stage. This is where we go into action, where action is taken to bring about all the plans that we have been making in the last 5 stages. The materials and the human resource are put to use at this stage. It is the actual takeoff stage. What has been designed before now is stage 5, or in stage 5 is carried out. That is, for us in the education program, we now say, okay, now classes starts on Monday for the adult education program. And when that class starts, what then happens? We start monitoring lesson 1, student attendance, continuous assessment, who teaches maths, who teaches English, and all that, and all that. That is in stage 4. It's called implementation stage. Now, what happens after stage 4 has finished? We kick into stage 7. Stage 7 is the evaluation stage. By definition, please take note of the definition. Evaluation is the process of determining the extent to which stated objectives have been achieved. At this stage, the planner will pause, allow the professionals to do the thing, allow those that are implementing to do their thing, and then take the professional now, the planner now takes stock of how much have been achieved in relation to stated objectives. Evaluation could be formative objectives or summative objective. When we say it's formative objective, what do we mean? Formative objective is an ongoing evaluation. It just you keep evaluating as you go. You carry out one thing, after classes, you evaluate how it was. After assignment, you evaluate. After midterm break, you evaluate. You see it when the students go home and bring back their practical assignment, you evaluate. It's formative. You keep evaluating as you go on. It's an ongoing evaluation. As planned activities are being implemented, routine checks equally go on simultaneously as they go. But the summative evaluation, what does it really mean? Summative evaluation is end of program evaluation. You don't evaluate this one mid-term or ongoing. No, this is summative evaluation happens at the end of the program. It is a final evaluation carried out at the end of the project. If this result of summative evaluation shows that particular objectives have not been achieved, the planner revisits that stage in the program plan. Depending on the nature of the result of the evaluation, the planner may go back and start from that stage or any other stage, as the case may be, to correct whatever was identified. This suggests that the fact that the planning process of rural development is cyclical, that is a cycle of stages. You go from 1, 2, 3, 4. When you evaluate and find out that there's a problem, you go back to that stage again and continue again in that circle. All right. Now look at the diagram you have on your screen. It is the planning process. You see it just as we listed it earlier: need assessment, objective selection, prioritizing objective, determining resources, program design, program implementation, and evaluation. Now let's talk about financing rural development projects. First, let's define what the concept finance is. Finance, according to scholars, is raising of funds by individuals, cooperative enterprises, firms, organizations, non-governmental organizations for the day-to-day running and management of their businesses. So as a discipline, finance is merely a body of facts, principles and practices, principles and theories, which deals with raising and using of money by individuals, government, non-governmental organization, firms, and cooperative to accomplish a task. Now, that is finance. Finance is the use of money for day-to-day running. What is rural financing? Rural financing, according to Mobi, 2006, encompasses the financial side of almost all the economic activities or processes of rural areas. This includes all that involves savings, financing, insurance of financial risk as it concerns the rural people. Rural financing system includes all the savings and financing opportunities and the financial institutions which provide savings and financing opportunities, as well as valid norms and models of behaviors that relate to financial systems. So that's how it is defined. Please take note of those definitions so that you can remember them in terms of when your exam comes. Now, what is the objective of promoting rural financing? The first is called the objective of promoting rural financing, according to Nwobi, is as follows. One, the first intermediate objective with direct effect on the target group is the development of accessible financial institutions. You see, now I want you to start from the beginning now to understand how the author tries to differentiate these objectives. Some objectives are targeting groups, while some objectives are going to be targeting generality of the place called rural areas. So let's be able to differentiate them. So the first intermediate objective with direct effect on targeted groups is the development of accessible financial institutions. So to promote rural financing, the financial institution that will help the people should be developed first, so that the people can access finance through those institutions. So accessibility to them in this context refers to the type of product those institutions are presenting, the kind of services they are presenting, the business policies, and the location of the financial institution. So in those areas where there are no financial institutions, this secondary objective consists of, the secondary objective then now consists of building these institutions. So in areas where rural finance institution already exists, the secondary objective is to motivate the people, motivate them, and make them, enable them to accept power segmentation or segmental of the power segmentals of the population as their customers. That is the poor people as their customers, and they figure out the products to use to assess them or to reach them. Now, the second intermediate objective, which is directly related to the target group, is to strengthen the efficiency, stability, and autonomy of those pre-existing and newly formed financial institutions. So you see, promoting rural financing, first you develop the institution. So now you're going to promote or strengthen their efficiency, stability, and autonomy of this pre-existing financial institution or the newly formed financial institutions. Now, the secondary objective, namely creating and strengthening financial institutions for the target groups, requires that such institutions pursue the following specific tasks so that they can achieve their objectives. The first is a target group must be trained on how to handle money and credit and learn how to contact the financial institution. Let's just make this thing practical a bit. I know it's time wasting, but we'll try, so that those that watch the video later will be able to get the point. Let's say in a rural area, they don't have access to finance, all right? they decide that we'll introduce POS. We are trying to make it as practical as possible. We'll introduce POS as well as banks, right? Now, so when we introduce the banks, you have to provide a kind of protection for the banks. If you don't do that, you will end up having issues with accessibility for those that are accessing it. So once you provide banks and POSs, the target groups are the poor people in the village that should attend to use those facilities. So the first thing you do is to train them on how to use it. When you take your card to the POS person, please watch the person. When he puts the card, be careful so they don't take more than they are supposed to take. Oh, you do this, they are transferring money, do this. They just give them tips on how to use it. That's the first training on how to handle money, credit, and how to contact the financial institution. The second is investment opportunities that must be opened up for saving, which already exist, so that the savers may generate interest. The third is income generating and possible job creation investments, which the target groups previously could not finance, should be made possible for them. And then the fourth is financial institutions are also to provide services in strict sense. That is, for example, the form of business consulting services for them. They are farmers, so you consult for them, tell them how to do their farm business properly so they can pay you back your money, which introduces innovations, tell them how to innovate, handle insurance schemes if they need it for their product and their business, arrange contracts with insurance company to execute or to give them such product, and so on and so forth. Now, also teach the target groups how to save, provide them savings opportunity, credit opportunities. These are to be provided for self-help projects in the community. So these are some of the objectives. That's objective number 2. Objective number 3, there should be that is the secondary objectives in promoting rural finance, which are only indirectly oriented towards the target. This particular one is not directly targeting the target groups, but is indirectly targeting them. They are not direct to the extent that they do not involve any direct contact between the target groups and the savings, and that is the financial institutions being promoted. So you target things around them that will make things easy for them, but not directly targeting them. For those that are doing POS, you target maybe making, when they come for POS, the environment to be safe enough for them to have the confidence to use your services. Because if you position yourself in a place where they feel unsafe, they will not come. Then the fourth, one intermediate objective is to implement is the implementation in the supply of financial services to the instrumental target group. Many investments in small scale and medium scale enterprises belonging to proprietors who are not themselves members of target groups are only feasible if there is a sufficient and inexpensive supply of credit. So supply of financial services to the instrumental target group is quite important. And then number 5, the last secondary objective of indirect relevance to the target group is the creation of linkage between informal institutions directly accessible to the target groups and the formal institutional infrastructure. Now, the deposit of funds of an informal savings association in a bank, for example, could provide members with an indirect interest income, which savings associations usually do not provide for them. Okay. Now, we're trying to gain time now. Now, what are the indigenous self-help organizations in rural financing? Self-help organizations um, are found in rural communities, and they include social clubs, age grades, youth clubs, religious organizations, development unions, cooperative societies. Now, cooperative movements have been accepted as self-help activities even before the introduction of cooperative by the colonial masters into the Nigerian system. When we say self-help is a way of helping oneself through the help of the fellow men working together, having felt needs like yourself. So when all of you come together to help yourself, we say self-help. So various self-help organizations were formed by people to help themselves, their economic problems, solve their economic problems, solve their social problems, as well as um, carry out activities like building of walls in residential houses for themselves, planting crops together for themselves, harvesting their crops together, helping themselves generally. So the social help, self-help organizations that are found in rural communities mostly are social clubs, age grades, youth clubs, religious organizations, government unions, and cooperatives. All right. So how do this self-help organization affect rural financing? For social clubs, some of us are involved in it, but let us just throw a little light to this. The formation of social clubs have no age grade. All right. They just have their motto and what is their felt needs. The involvement of youth is highly noticed in this area because they like forming social groups. Social clubs, social clubs are, according to Wobi, embark on meaningful development projects in various communities. They do invest in valuable projects which yield some very good amount of money. Like they um, try to build maybe halls for their people. They usually try to affect their members in various ways. And even in urban areas, social clubs are there. Now we also have age grade groups. The institution of age grade is common in the Igbo land. They plan important roles in community development. They build halls, buy born water, electrification projects. They even build schools, civic centers, and all that. They even build roads in some cases. So young men and women are required uh, in the area of their age, those are between the same age brackets to form age grades in their community and they are respected in their own right. So also have the youth clubs. The youth clubs are reservoirs where resources could be drawn. Now, the population usually referred to as youths are physically strong, mentally alert, and purposive or progressive in thought. Now, youth development is the job of improving the energetic sector of the population through programs to make them good citizens who will contribute to the development of the community. Now, youths in the Nigerian traditional societies are given social and political recognition. Men within the age of youth are usually organized and given special duties by the community. The youths are required to defend societies against war. They partake in economic activities like farming, fishing, hunting, and all that. Now, this means that the youth provides the main source of labor on which the community development project depends. So when you are carrying out a rural development project, the youths are very, very important to draw from their resource. So we have religious organizations. Some of us are Christians, some of us are traditional worshippers, some of us are Muslims, and some of us worship different gods. But in all, they shape how we contribute to our local community. And that's how they contribute to as indigenous organizations in rural financing. Now, they will have the development unions. These groups are usually made up of able-bodied men and boys. The task of the development union are related to age grade again, are related to youth clubs as well. Apart from defending the community, development unions organize themselves and do one kind of launching or the other to enable their community erect, maybe build a hall, pipe on water, road, bridges, and so on and so forth. So they are key, they're also key in bringing about community development. All right. They give awards and scholarships as well. Then we have cooperatives as a self-help organization. Cooperative as self-help organization therefore means that they are organizations which are formed by a number of persons with the aim of helping themselves solve their economic problems as well as socio-economic problems as well. Okay. Now, thereby achieving a degree of self-reliance for their members through joint and mutually acceptable actions or aids. In fact, every form of cooperation implies help and self-reliance. All right. Now, let's talk about rural savings and rural capital formation. What do we really mean by this concept? What do we really mean by this concept? The mobilization of savings, mobilization of savings is an important source of funds for lending in the rural sector. You know, before you can lend, you need to mobilize savings. Before you can lend, you can't just lend money that you don't have. So you have to gather the money. So rural communities in most cases have nothing to save since they don't have enough to eat in the first place. So the beginning of any serious discussion about um, savings and capital formation should center on working out a model whereby funds from government, private, and urban areas should be channeled to the rural areas. Then they can have enough to save. All right. Okay. Now, in order to stimulate the internal generation of capital, the major factor limiting the tapping of rural savings is the meager disposable income of the rural earners. Because of low income and because many investors run away from doing business in rural areas, the rural dwellers have not formed the habit of savings. So you first of all introduce the habit of savings, then you can now have capital formation one way or the other. Now, savings institutions in the rural areas could stimulate, they could be stimulated by one, opening of rural banks with savings facilities. This will help the people learn how to save. Two, developing a savings borrowers relationship. They learn how to save, learn how to borrow and pay back. Three, adopting simple and convenient system of servicing deposits. Okay. Then insurance of deposit up to a certain level to promote public confidence. That is, government gives them a kind of insurance to back up whatever they are doing. Then five, educating the rural people to improve their living conditions and to encourage them to use banking facilities. To encourage them through education is very, very important. Then number six, encouraging rural banks to reinvest a greater portion of their profit on rural projects. And then number seven, creating an atmosphere of mutual confidence and trust between the bank and the community in which it operates. Now, scholars have also talked about the advantages of rural financing, and these are the advantages. One, inculcating the habit of contributing, savings in the members, and depositing same with formal financial institutions. So the key point here is inculcating the habit of contributing savings, that habit of contribution, that habit of savings. If you don't learn it, you will not know. For those that belong to cooperative, you realize that cooperative will help you to contribute small money like this. When you are contributing it, it's not painful. At the end of the day, when you check what you have contributed over maybe 2, 3 years, you'll be so surprised the amount you have gotten. And then they give you leverage to leverage the amount you contributed to borrow money in case you need money. So it's so much interesting because most people don't know it until they start doing it. They now understand what habit of contribution, habit of savings, the advantage that is involved in it. And this is very key for those that live in the rural area. Number two, advantage of rural financing is that it helps to the accumulation of savings deposit with the bank and could become collateral loans that helps the members to gain extra advantage from the society they belong to. So it's the accumulation of savings deposits with the banks become collateral. So the key word here is collaterals for loans that they may want to collect in the future. Number three, enhancing the viability and liquidity position of rural banks through deposit accumulation. All right. That is another advantage of rural savings and capital formation. Rural savings also can help in the reduction in default rates, as savings mobilization could be used to offer outstanding loans when the needs arise. Rural savings can also help in the transformation of informal to formal rural financial system with all the benefits deniable therefrom. So these are some of the advantages. Now, I want to rush through this so that we can talk a bit before our time runs out. The nature of the Nigerian rural financing system. Now, one of the things you will notice is that the Nigerian rural sector can be said to be consistent of all, or can said to be to consist is said to consist of all economic activities outside urban communities. Now, authors have stated that rural settlements can be regarded as those whose population engage primarily in economic activities involving the direct and indirect exploitation of the land by undertaking crop production, farm animal husbandry, fishery, food processing, cottage industries, including rural craft, mining, trading, and transportation. Now, the objective of rural financing is to encourage banking habits among the rural population, to provide services such as the use of checks as instrument for payment, embracing the money transfer system, opening of letter for payment, opening of letter of credit, money transfer advisory services, encouraging the rural people to know how to issue drafts, collection of bills. Also, we help them directly in fostering of or encouraging them in their productivity by offering borrowers a variety of technical services and help. That is the objective of rural financing. All right. Now, the Nigerian rural financial system includes the following: specialized institutions, for example, those that are specialized in providing specialized instruments like development banks for development, urban development, cooperative banks for development of cooperative, community banks, as we call them these days, microfinance banks. These are specialized institutions to cater for the for specialized banking needs of a segment of the society. Then we also have community banks. Today we call them microfinance banks, right? Community banks targeting communities to service communities specifically. Then we have urban development banks. Urban development banks usually in several Nigerian cities they experience several problems like inadequate housing, transportation, electricity, water supply, and so on. So the federal government established the Urban Development Bank through a decree in 1992. The Urban Development Bank, therefore, was established to finance and foster the rapid development of urban and rural infrastructure throughout the federation. So their target is to bring about infrastructural development. Another specialized institution is the cooperatives. The cooperative bank uh, was established to give services to the cooperatives. All right. Today, I think is the Bank of Agri that is the specialized bank for that as it stands. Now we also have what are the objectives of the cooperative banks? To operate as a secondary financing agency for securing finances for available resources to cater for the needs of registered cooperative societies within the operational areas, to promote thrift among members by offering them an opportunity to accumulate their savings, to develop and assist and coordinate the financial aspect of registered societies within their area of operation, to have power to accept savings, to have power to contract financially with the approval of the registrars of cooperatives. So these are the objectives of cooperative bank: to have power to invest and deposit the surplus funds of the society, to have power to borrow for the purpose of its business from other sources within the with the approval of the registrar, of course, to, to have the power to acquire assets of any nature in the interest of the bank, to harness all the available resources within the cooperative movement. So these are the things we are talking about today. Now, let us talk about some of the things that you don't understand. You can unmute yourself or put up your hand and ask questions concerning these topics we just talked about. So I've tried to explain some of the things we intended to talk about today. So for those that have questions, you can raise them at this point so that we can talk about it. All right. For me, my take home for me, I would say everyone should learn the elements of planning, what makes planning important, then these stages of rural development project plan, implementation, and appraisal. Very, very key. Very, very key. So if you have a question, you can put up your hand. I'm watching. Right. All right, let us take it that you don't have a question. Now, I would like everyone to for those that have not attempted their their discussion forum questions, should try to do that because it's a prerequisite for you to to attempt your TMA. If you have questions, ask it in the discussion forum. All right. Then we have for those that don't have access to these videos online or having difficulties to access Zoom. or the school portal, there's an alternative. You could go online and watch each week's live session. It is there on YouTube. I send a link now on the chat box. Go there, click, and watch. So once you do that, you get acquainted. Now, another thing again is this: for you to not always have to be searching, just click the subscribe button, share the link in your various class groups so that those that couldn't join today's class can click and watch the videos and prepare. You see, there's something I noticed about students. I was part of the last marking session, and one of the things is that students just don't try to remember. They just don't want to put in effort. The last questions that they took in their TMAs, the last discussion forum we had in that last session, we talked about almost half of all that was said in their exams, but they didn't participate. If they did participate, they wouldn't have read so much because they would easily just remember what we discussed in this class and they will pass their exams peacefully. But they didn't participate and they were relying on other people. Yet we have a session that the school has authorized for us to use. We had a discussion and a revision class here. We handled many questions, and half of those questions came out, and students didn't take advantage of it. Well, we will do our best, and we will leave the rest for you. All right. Thank you guys for showing up today. I know you are more than this number, but a lot will watch this video afterwards. While you're watching, try and click the like buttons in that YouTube page you're watching. Subscribe, share the link with others that are your classmates that can't join in your group WhatsApp, and that way you'll be helping them participate in what we are doing. All right, thank you for joining. See you guys in our next facilitation session. Okay, bye-bye. Bye.